celebrate Women's Day for a week program. Yesterday we started off with some interesting programs like reading of a Konkani two-act play, healthy cooking, yoga, egg tempura painting, poetry reading, and launch of the White Horse project. We will continue to have many more programs during the week till the 14th and wind up with our annual seminar on women in media, need for a gender code on 13th and 14th. Please come to that. You're all invited, all of you. We are really glad to see you here, and I hope we get a larger crowd by and by. Today we are going to discuss a very serious and pressing issue, which is not only a major concern in Goa but also all over India: the missing girls. Recently, Goa's CM, Mr. Manohar Parrikar, also made a statement that out of 1,000 boys, 62 boys will not get a girl to marry in the next 15 years. If you imagine better education and prosperity would translate into a positive sex ratio for girls, think again. Goa, which ranks high on the Human Development Index, has proved this sociological belief wrong. Over the past 10 years, the sex ratio in Goa has worsened, and government figures show 5,000 girls are missing in the state. This was revealed by Vikram Patel, a Goa-based health researcher and psychiatrist. Girls reported missing are found raped, murdered, or victims of human trafficking. As per the census 2011, the sex ratio in Goa is 938 girls to 1,000 boys, which is far less than the national average of 940 girls to 1,000 boys. Some say female feticide and infanticide are the main reasons. We are here to discuss that also. So we will continue to discuss and debate on this in this panel on these issues, and I would like to call upon now the panelists. The person who will I would like to call first is Sandesh. Please come. He's editor goanews.com and a senior journalist in his own right. He will be the moderator. K.R. Srinivas, editor Times of India, Goa. Deepa Narayan. She's a cultural psychologist and has worked on poverty issues as senior advisor in the World Bank. And it was actually her article in the Herald which triggered off this whole debate. We'll be distributing that article just now, where she talks about that Bihar is better than Goa. So that's Shaila D'Souza. She is head Center for Women's Studies, Goa University. We are expecting Mangesh Raikar also to be here with us, President GCCI, and we hopefully expect another popular figure from Goa to be with us. The name I shall not reveal. Let it be a surprise. So over to you, Sandesh.
Let's not be very formal about the whole thing.
So we'll start with Deepa Narayan, because as Nandini said, she has triggered this debate. So let's listen to Deepa first and then.
Thank you very much. I've been living in Goa for the last 3 years, and it was after the gang rape incident in Delhi that, as all of you were disturbed, I was also disturbed, and then living in Goa, seeing more and more stories about gang rapes as well as rape of young girls. I felt very, very disturbing, and so I started thinking about it, and that's what led to the article. The gender is a very, very deeply social, cultural issue. And the reason it is that these gender roles, what a woman should be, what a girl should be, what a boy should be, we learn very early. And if girls change, that means the boys have to change. Or if women change, men have to change. And so very quickly it becomes a divisive issue. But if you think about gender equity and inequity, one can argue why is there gender inequity, are women treated differently, etc. But if you look at sex ratio statistics very quickly, you can't argue anymore. And that's why I focused on sex ratio as the ultimate indicator of inequity. What does sex ratio mean? Nandini has already talked about it. Basically, it's the one statistic that globally has been agreed to as the indicator that shows gender discrimination. So all things being equal, more or less, under normal circumstances, there should be an equal number of boys as girls. And the ratio is usually, if you look at it in terms of 1,000 boys versus 1,000 girls. The moment it drops below that, you know that something is missing, something is off. And researchers calculated and adjust the raw numbers in various ways, but basically this is the phenomenon that Amartya Sen is called missing women. In South Asia, China, I won't talk about China, but it's in South Asia and India is one of the worst sex ratios. So in Goa, we think of Goa as liberal, enlightened, one different from the rest of Asia. So, and the rest of India particularly. So when I saw the numbers, and these numbers were coming up in all the newspapers, on the sex ratio, that I was quite alarmed. So I want to spend just a minute on what these numbers were. And I think in our discussion, I want us to keep rape into account. So because rape is the ultimate subjugation of women. And in Goa, and even when there is rape, we can argue about is the woman to blame or not. And we've seen this played out in the newspapers of women wearing provocative dresses, or you shouldn't be out late at night, etc., etc. But when you think about rape of young girls, as has been happening in Goa, of rape of girls in school toilets, 4 and 7-year-olds, you cannot ignore it anymore. And so that's really what led to this questioning called, let's look at what's happening in Goan society and see if we can understand what's happening. And then based on this, first you've got to have a conversation or dialogue, and then look at what are the actions. I also feel very strongly that there's a very strong cultural element to this, which is why it's uncomfortable to talk, because we're all implicated, both men as well as women. Me as well, it's every one of us. So the sex ratio, as Nandini talked about, is of the adults, that means all women versus all men. In 2011, it was 968. It had improved from 961 in 2001. That means in a decade, it had improved by about 7. At the time of independence, it was 1066. That means it will take another 100 years. It will take, at this rate of improving, it will take another 100 years before the sex ratio goes back to pre-independence. I think we would all agree that it would be a tragic pace of progress. But what's even more alarming is that when you look at, so this is the adult or over the lifespan, but when you look at the child sex ratio, it's actually gotten worse. So the overall sex ratio has improved a little bit, but very slow progress. But the child sex ratio, which means girls from 0 to 6, has gotten worse. And this is the ratio that I highlighted in the newspaper article. It's actually safer for girls 0 to 6 to be born in Bihar, that we consider as the poorest and one of the bottom cases, because you see a lot of Bihari migrants in Goa. But the sex ratio for girls is actually higher in Bihar than it is in Goa presently. And so the question that we need to ask is what's happening here in Goa. When we think of sex ratio statistics, we very quickly go to, it's not us, it's them. It's outside us, and that's where the denial starts. And so I look at four issues. One is poverty in Goa. Goa has a distinction of only 4.4% of poverty, so it can't be poverty, right? It's actually the wealthiest state in the country, so it cannot be related to poverty. Second is education. Goa has the distinction of having a very highly literate population. For men, it's about 93%, and women, it is 82% literacy. Third, we say, well, it's not us, it's those conservative people in the rural areas. Actually, the sex ratio is much better in the rural areas than it is in the urban areas. And fourth, we blame migrants. It cannot be only migrants, because the sex ratio is very similar in 1991 to what it is today. And this is the period when migration from outside has increased tremendously. So it's none of the usual causes, and I think the cause is very uncomfortably lies in culture. One of the statistics that I did not put into the article that I hope we can discuss today, since we are in a small group, is that when you come to culture, the only sex ratio statistics that's available, and this was only started to be disaggregated in 2001, is by religious groups. And this is not an attack on religion, but religious affiliation as a cultural metaphor. What are the cultural practices? So I just want to repeat, this has nothing to do with the sacred parts of the religion or what God you worship, but I'm talking about religion as a metaphor for culture. In Goa, if you look at the 0 to 6 sex ratios amongst Hindus and Christians, it's not very different. Both are bad. But if you look at the overall sex ratio, the sex ratio amongst Hindus falls to 918, and this is based on the census data. And amongst the Christians, it goes up to 1106. And some of it surely has to do with migration, because men migrate a lot amongst the Christian groups, perhaps not as much amongst the Hindus. So that the number of missing women is much more likely to be amongst the Hindus. No, these are 2001. 2011, we don't have the data yet. And I looked at it at the national level based on religion. It's the same pattern. That the Hindus, actually on the national level, the Sikhs are the worst. It's the Sikhs, then Hindus, and then the other groups. But the Christians, the sex ratio is very high, it's about the highest. Now, it's important in this context, because it's a sensitive subject, to also look at Kerala, which is the only state which has a large proportion of Christians, as high as Goa. In Kerala, there is no difference in the sex ratio of Hindus and Christians. And that is really important to remember. So it's not inevitable that culture can be overcome and does change. And that, in fact, the sex ratio amongst Hindus in Kerala is slightly better than amongst the Christians. The only point I want to make from bringing about this statistics is that culture and the male preference for boys runs really deep. And one of the most startling stories that I reflect in the article is that our cultural biases are so deep that we are unaware, it's unconscious. And it reflects even in the judgments of the Supreme Court. May I take a minute to read out this judgment? Because I think rather than talking about you and I and getting into arguments, the only point I want to make is that our cultural biases are very deep and become unconscious. So they become part of our norm, the way we judge the world. So this came out just a week before my article was published, and it was actually in the Times, which said that the Supreme Court had given the death penalty to a man who killed a 7-year-old boy, and the 7-year-old boy was from a family in which he was the only son. And the bench, the two justices wrote, and here I quote, "The parents of the deceased had 4 children, 3 daughters and 1 son. kidnapping the only male child was to induce maximum fear in the mind of his parents. Killing the sole male child has grave repercussions for the parents of the deceased. Agony for parents for the loss of their male child, who would have carried further the family lineage and is expected to see them through their old age. So I feel that unless we address these deep cultural issues and cultural practices, that it's important to focus on fast-track courts, it's important to focus on getting a better police and a sensitized police. It's important to prosecute, but it won't be enough. That's important as a deterrent, but unless we change as a people, as a culture, to value women and overcome these cultural practices so that we as families are not dependent only on male children, but see girls also as being able to perform the same roles. We're going to keep seeing very skewed gender ratios despite economic prosperity. In fact, the gender ratio went down very dramatic during the exact period of economic liberalization from 1991 to 2001. And while now the overall sex ratio has changed a little bit, the child ratio is continuing to go down. I think we'll come back to solutions as part of our discussion.
Main point is basically, she's saying it's a deep cultural bias. There is the main reason. It's neither poverty nor rural factor or education or migrants who are in war.
Let's move to Shaila.
I don't think I have any point of disagreement with Deepa, but I have, as I also in the course of my presentation talk of some work that I have done, and actually looked at pointing the finger in a different direction, namely the way Goa has gone. The recent and numerous reports of violence against women and girls that Deepa talked about, the increasing number of property disputes in our courts, the increased incidence of disinheritance of women. I happen to be on the Women's Commission for a term of 3 years till 99, and in those 3 years we sadly saw 2,000 cases of violence and property disputes. So I say this out of experience. The lowered health status of women, the low participation of women in the paid workforce, and the declining sex ratio all point to something having gone completely wrong with Goa's development. Yes, Goa has a high per capita income, as Deepa has already pointed out, high levels of education of both women and men, as even Nandini mentioned, but this has not translated into empowerment of women, whether it is economic, social, political, or personal, in terms of her health or her participation in decision making. And my argument is that if women are vulnerable in a society, so will the girl child, and so will the unborn female fetus. In terms of economic empowerment, educated women are not represented in the paid workforce. Only 1/3 of these educated women, and in Goa we are not only literate, we also have women who have attained very high levels of education. These are not enumerated in our quote-unquote working women. And I ask, are women not wanting an income for their work? Are women not skilled enough for the jobs available? Do women not want to work in the jobs that are available? Or are women being denied jobs even though they are trained, skilled, and or equally competent to men? Would it not be correct to assume that gender discrimination exists in employment practices in Goa? In Goa, we have had equal property rights in terms of a civil code since 1867. But only now, as the value of property has gone up, ancestral property has become a cause of family dispute. Our courts, and we have here a lawyer who can vouch for this, our courts are kept overworked with property disputes. The family home is no more tied to memories and emotion, but seen as an economic asset that has to be divided, and in this battle, it is the powerful that wins the dispute. The cost of living has gone up.
And by cost of living, I mean food has become inaccessible. And basic food, not luxury food, basic food has become unaffordable to people. That has impacted on health of people in Goa and women in particular. Women's health is a neglected issue. We may not even need to quote the NFHS or the National Family Health Survey, which has revealed that 36% of women in Goa are anemic and 27% are undernourished. Any salaried or daily wage earner in this audience can vouch for this, that food has now become unaffordable. Please read the high per capita income that we talked about, our two speakers talked about, with increase in urban poverty ratio. And Deepa, this is only one point which I have a difference of opinion, because Planning Commission data says it's gone up from 4.4 to 9% in 2009-10, which is the last available data of Planning Commission. In fact, 2005, 4-5 had even higher, but 9-10 it seems to have come down. Now, if we have a high per capita income and we have a high increasing urban poverty ratio, what this is telling us is that there are huge differentials in income. The gap between those who have and have not is getting wider. While tourism might have resulted in a higher per capita income, what it has also done, it has put land prices. Tourism has resulted in urbanization of rural areas, allowed for conversion of agricultural land to settlement zone, and sometimes this has happened with urbanization. In turn, this has reduced access to food. This, adding to the inequalities in society and has created discontent, feelings of jealousy, increasing crime, hatred, anger, and the vulnerable, whether it is children, women, or less powerful men, are easy targets. The Susegad Content Goa has actually changed in its culture, which I want to add to your analysis of a cultural change. In this environment where women are considered an economic liability, because if families are now spending on her education, probably marriage and all the other customs, which I think we need a whole other seminar to talk about. But basically, if women are being educated, families are spending a lot of money on education, but if it's not translating into her being part of the paid workforce and she's not bringing in an income, it probably she is probably seen as an economic liability. And then, if this is the scenario, does a son preference come as a big surprise? Now we read son preference with rising cost of living. As Deepa has talked about, yes, there is a son preference. NFHS has talked about it. We all know son preference exists. With the rising cost of living, families will be forced to curtail their family size. Now, Goa already has a total fertility rate of 1.77, which is less than 2. A population needs 2 children to reproduce itself. Goa has already got a lower than replacement population. Now, if a son preference, there is a very strong possibility that if women are people are trying to curtail the family size, that the practice of female feticide and selective abortions is not unthinkable, because one cannot just tailor-make family compositions like that. Some have said that a declining sex ratio is due to improved medical facilities in the state that has resulted in a lower mortality rate amongst men. Some others say that it is out-migration for work and in-migration of male labor. Some have doubted the census data itself. We heard all sorts of denials. And of course, we will never accept that tourism development might have anything to do with the declining sex ratio. And here I would like to discuss with you very briefly our study which looked at Kandoli and Mandur. Kandoli and Mandur basically represent two complete contrasting levels of tourism in Bollywood. While you have Kandoli, which is the highest number of tourist accommodation available, you have Mandur, which has minimal or absent number of tourist accommodation. And our study revealed, we looked at 300 women in both these villages, and it revealed that although women in Mandur have a lower per capita income and lower levels of education, they had a better health status. And by better health status, we took the BMI, which is the body mass index, as an indicator, and also the incidence of illness and diseases over the last year. And we found that people in Mandur had a better health status than women in Kandoli. Apart from this, we found that participation in paid workforce was more, women's participation in paid workforce was more in Mandur than in Kandoli, and also the sex ratio was higher in Mandur than in Kandoli. In Goa, the sex ratio has declined, as Deepa said, from being above 1,000 men in pre-liberation, and it's also the time where tourism potential was discovered. And I'm just posing this as a proposition. I would like to end here with a few suggestions, because we've also looked at the data. I don't want to present any more data. I would like to present a few very simple suggestions. One is that since Goa has already attained below replacement population of 1.77, it seems redundant that our health staff, our primary health centers, sub-centers, we have a huge number of staff that are engaged, continually engaged in family planning and promotion of contraception. If you look at our primary health centers, Goa has a very good network of primary health care. And these functionaries, family planning and immunization are top on the list. Now, Goa has a universal knowledge of contraception. We have a low, high couple protection rate. We have a low TFR. But yet, our staff are in family planning. I would suggest that we, as a group, ask for this staff to be diverted towards implementation and monitoring of the PNDT Act. We have a wonderful PNDT Act, but unfortunately it is not in place and is not being practiced. PNDT also requires for private practitioners to submit details of the medical termination of pregnancies and the number of ultrasounds and the details of the ultrasound that have been done in their, but that hasn't happened. So PNDT Act and nutrition education are things that are two mandatory things that need to be included as part of the health thing. And two other suggestions are, one is, if women are being so highly educated, there has to be some sort of system where we can guarantee women employment. And one of my suggestions is that we can have tax incentives for equal employment institutions. If there are tax incentives where companies and different institutions who employ men and women at all levels equally. So there should be some sort of tax incentive for them, and maybe there will be an incentive for them to hire women. And lastly, since from my experience, family disputes have disinherited women because of the equal property rights that women had and because of land prices. There should be, like you have gift tax. If you want to gift your property, there is a tax, there's a penalty for gifting your property. There should be a penalty for disinheriting women. So these are my three suggestions. Thanks. Penalty for disinheriting women from their title to the property. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, Shaila has concluded it very well also by giving the range of reasons why it is happening and what is the situation. And of course, based on a study and survey, and come out with three concrete suggestions. One is regarding health and nutrition, second is about employment, and third is about the property disputes and family disputes where there should be a penalty. Let's move on to Srinivas.
Hello. Unlike the speaker ahead of me, I have not done any research on this subject. I'd like to dwell on what Deepa spoke and what Shaila spoke. Try to analyze what are the reasons that Goa has seen a decline in the sex ratio. What could be the reasons? Certainly not migration. I totally agree with Deepa. It's not about migration. It is something else that is happening deep-rooted in Goa, which we are probably not even looking at. I can tell you with the little experience I have in Goa, the women here are much more respected, much more looked after than compared to other societies in India, in other places in India. I'll just give you a small example. The Tanzania ran a contest for the Time Superwoman contest, Women's Day, which we published yesterday. One of the letters that won the contest was of a maid servant. One of the ladies chose her as a superwoman, saying that she was working in her aunt's house. She made her ends meet. Her husband was not supportive. Her husband was a drunkard. Somehow she educated her 2 children. At the end, her daughter became a nurse and the son became an engineer. And despite all that, she continues to be a maid servant today. I think that for me represents something very powerful of women's society. That a lady chose to write about her maid servant. How often do we see that happening? Mostly they write about themselves. But here, people are willing to give credit across societal levels, across social levels, across economic levels. So what is it that has made Goa and India among the lowest in sex ratio? I think India is slightly better than China. Like Deepa didn't want to dwell on China, but China is the worst. If you see most of the European countries, they are the best. The American, North America and South America, they are after that. North of Europe is the best. I think that's the global, always. So is it that they've lost out something after the Portuguese rule? Let's go up. I'm just trying to think if that our society is not able to cope with the pressures around us. Could it be that there are more centers of, there are more abortions taking place today in Goa? I don't know. I don't have the statistics, but I don't think that is happening really. In Goa at least. It might be happening in elsewhere in northern belt of India, but I was really puzzled about when Deepa came out with the statistics in the article about the falling sex ratio in Goa. I think that the more disturbing thing is that in the amongst people in the higher educated people, there is a decline in the sex ratio. It's not just in the amongst people who are illiterate. We need to certainly educate our people more on the need to have more women in a society do well. Shaila said that are people not having enough jobs for women? I don't think that is a reason. I also feel that there are a lot of women who are left from Goa who are doing well across the globe, who are doing better in other parts of India. So probably that has, we need to study that has also led to this sex ratio decline. Probably Deepa would be in a better position to study that. We need to institute certain studies to understand what has led to this decline. That is what I would like to, say. in terms of girls' education levels, in Goa, I think it's again doing well. We have had several stories in the media which talk about girls doing well in colleges in Goa. So why are they not taking up jobs? Is it that girls are not taking up jobs, or is it that companies or institutions are not giving them jobs? For example, in the tourism sector, as Shaila spoke, maybe there is a skew towards men getting jobs there because of the nature of the jobs. Maybe women are not coming forward to those jobs. Then we need to set up other industry which could provide jobs for women, specifically for women. So we need to identify what are those sectors which will help women get jobs. As always I've said, Goa needs to expand beyond the mining and tourism sectors. Probably that will also give better opportunities for women if you set up sectors like IT, if you set up sectors like education, for example. I think Goa can do well in education, can have better schools, more institutes of higher learning. And always we have seen that women have done well in those institutions across the country and across the globe. For my own experience in some of the institutes that I'm associated with elsewhere was that girls were more dedicated. They did a better job of studying. In fact, they have been performing better in competitive exams, scoring better marks. So there's no reason why we should not do something about that in Goa. Why not we have push towards having better institutes of learning in Goa, better colleges, better schools, better higher education, which will probably change the pattern that has been seen over the last 2 decades or 3 decades, where there is a decline in the sex ratio in Goa. I'd like to leave it to Deepa and Shaila to take this forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Srinivasan. I would say a real practical approach where we demolished the theories of statistics also. But really we need to, one thing I agree with what Srinivasan says, as a journalist, a colleague of mine, you look at the things also from practical point of view, not denying the theory, but both. And it is a puzzle. If you ask me, for me also, it's a sort of a puzzle, why it is happening. I have little different theory about this whole thing. I was also reading Deepa's article, which is really well written and well thought of. But maybe there are certain missing links in between. Basically, I come from Kankod, the southernmost taluka and the border village. And after I passed out my 12th and came to Madgaon for my college studies, I have been involved since then in student movement and the youth movement, cultural movement, and I have been still, and then I have been a journalist, professional journalist since 1990. 1987. So since then I have been moving all over Goa, meeting the people, know a lot of families, and I look at this whole phenomenon in a little different way. With that little experience, whatever I have, one thing is that I completely agree with everybody says that it's not education or it's not pre-Portuguese, post-Portuguese. I would say, okay, we have the figures in 1960 when it was 1,066 per thousand, the girl-boy ratio. But I have the figures here since 1900, the census figures, of course, where in 1900 it was 1,091. In 1910 it was 1,108, 1108. And the highest we is registered here is in 1921, this is pre-liberation. There was 1120, 1120, 1120. And in 1950, it was, I think, highest, not this. It was 1,128, where in North Goa it was 1,142, and in South Goa it was 1,107. So it started declining from 71 onwards, and from 981, okay, 968, and basically among the 0 to 6 years, it is really a shocking kind of thing where it has come down to 938. Right? The figures, the census figures, 938, where rural is 952 and urban is less, which is 924. So these kind of figures we do have, and I don't know. So I was just talking to Anita Hardi, and she told me just now while coming on the way, I called her because one of my journalist colleagues told me that she had made certain observations found out through the census figures in 2001 figures of 0 to 6 years are showing, which I have not seen personally, but she went through it again on a PC and she told me that 0 to 6 years in 2001 census, there are 2 villages where not a single girl child was born. And in North Goa, there are 3 villages where not a single child was born. That is between 0 to 6 years, means at least because of 6 years. So these things are also there in Goa. But at the same time, we find a trend where there is less ratio in the urban areas. But I have a little different theory for this. One thing is that just for deeper knowledge, it was not 1991 to 2001 where there was a huge migration. Actually, if you go by figures, then in 1960 we had 94,000 urban population and 5,33,000 rural population. Total population was 6,26,000 and all. In 1971 census, the urban 94,000 zooms up to 2 lakh and odd, which is almost like 115% rise. This is a huge rise which we have witnessed, and this was basically because of migration, because here the rural population goes up by 11% during the same time, and it was not in 1961 to 71 that there was basically migration from villages to cities. In Goa, it was not there so much, comparatively very less. So this huge rise in urban population was basically because of all the factories which came up, whether it is in Vasco, whether it is MPT or Goa Shipyard or Zuari Agro, or here it was Siba, even for that matter, though Yamaraf is little away from Fonda, basically Fonda city started coming up during the same time. Also mining and all these factors are there. So because of that huge amount of number of migrant population started coming in, and then actually it goes down comparatively. But what has happened after that, I find, is that I agree with what Srinivas is saying, that comparatively the respectability for women is there in Goa. And it is not that Goan society in that way, from feudal point of view, it is anti-girl child. That, but one reason I agree with what Shaila is saying, that the property disputes and the law of inheritance could be one of the prime reasons. But another reason which I find here is one thing which is a small thing, maybe if you could also help me in that, is basically the urban-rural population ratio if you take. In 1960, the urban population was only 15% and the rural population was 85%. And that was, I told you, it was 94,000 versus 5,32,000. In 2011 census figures which we find, the urban population has from 94,000 in 60 to 2011, it goes to 9 lakh. From 94,000 to 9 lakh, straight, 9 lakhs. and it has become 62%. And the rural population from 5,32,000 in 1960, in 2011, it is 5,51,000. 5,32,000 to 5,51,000. It's basically because huge number of migration, urbanization within Goa, due to which today in Goa, in 1960 it was 15% urban and 85% rural. Today it is exactly opposite. Today it is 62% urban and 38% rural. So overall, if you see the sex ratio and everything, it is bound to have whatever impact we see will be seen in the urban areas. Number one. Number two, what I find is that basically there is this urbanization has taken place in my area, in South, basically. Government is the biggest employer in Goa, and especially it is Panji and other areas, and Madgaon, of course, and of course there are other taluka towns, and basically these are two district towns, and this also district town is the capital city, Panji. Here, when people come for employment, they go back to the village. They prefer to live in a village, and they come to work. And that's why you find less number of migration or the urbanization in the north. But in my area, if you go, whether it is Kankon, my taluka, Kepe, Sange, or even Fonda for that matter, the urbanization is taking place. In my area, basically you find only old people. If father and mother, if father dies, then mother is brought, like I brought my mother. Everybody brings mother to stay with you. Mother dies, then the father is brought. Then they get suffocated also. They try to go back, but there is nobody. There is nobody means basically even in the neighborhood there is nobody to support them. The houses are either empty or with old people, with five. So such kind of situation you find in Kepe, Sange, Kankon, in all these areas. And here, even with your feudal mentality, everything, maybe this is a reason, I don't know, that people have migrated. They have come and taken up jobs. They are basically middle class, upper middle class, they are little educated. And basically what is happening is that earlier there were joint families. And there were people to look after children, even if the father and mother, the parents were working. Today, the phenomena which is there, which you find, Dr. Ghanikar will agree with me, this is the phenomena which we find, is that the families have become nuclear. It's very, very difficult to find a joint family. Recently, when I was working with HCN, Devika Chakravarti, I was trying to do an article on joint families, and we were desperately searching for joint families, living joint families, not the families which come together for Ganesh Chaturthi. And we could find hardly anyone, any family where really a real family. Joint family means not the family which is cooking separately, but cooking together. That is the joint family spirit which is not there. It is basically the nuclear family, which lives in flats. 62% live in the urban areas, and then both have to work. I don't know. It is a cultural issue, but in a different way than what you are perceiving. That basically they don't want the phenomena. They don't want more than one child. One child phenomena is the phenomena right now in Goa. You hardly, very, very, very rarely you find two children. Okay, and even in my house the gap is of 8 years between two children, because both go to work. You have to manage the child, and you don't even this is middle class, high middle class, upper middle class families. You don't even get the maids to look after, and of course you can't leave your child to the maid, it becomes difficult. So all such kind of things are there, due to which basically people go for nuclear families, they go for one child. And what happens is that when you go for one child, with all the feudal values and everything, and the education is there, and you know that a female, the girl child can be aborted. And at that stage, you decide, I am going to have only one child, and that is going to be son who is going to look after this whole property and everything. Maybe this is one reason why this is happening, where urbanization is also the reason for that. Urbanization with nuclear families, this could be one reason. I don't know. We need to find out more about it. Just some journalistic instinct I am showing this in with little practical experience. And what Shaila said is also 1.77 fertility rate. It is really shocking for a couple. 1.77 child means not even 1.5 child for a couple. So that is the phenomena which we see. Prakash Kamath was supposed to chair this session, and he had to go somewhere, so I was a replacement. So Prakash called me up just to tell, because he was also preparing himself for that. He went to the women's police station to find out the figures of missing girls. And in 2012, the women's police station, 373 cases were registered of missing girls. Maybe some of them were found, but that we could not get. But below 18 were 162, and above 18 were 211. In 2011, in last two months, basically 53 cases are registered of missing girls. 16 are below 18 and 37 are above 18. He told me to pass it on to this session. There is another thing which I find, and hardly there were any protests, and I really wonder why there were no protests. Everybody talks about Ladli Lakshmi these days, and Ladli Lakshmi is basically, it has been told that advertised widely that to prevent female feticide. I really don't know how female feticide can be prevented by giving government dowry to a girl above 18 to get married. There were two schemes which the earlier government had freed, called Dhanalakshmi and Kanyadan. I am dead against the word Kanyadan, but the same Kanyadan has been converted into Ladli Lakshmi. Both these schemes were basically for economically backward classes and not for everybody. Here Ladli Lakshmi has been extended to much bigger section, and also the amount is also from 25,000 has been taken to 1 lakh. But the Dhanalakshmi scheme was really an excellent scheme, where the minute a girl child is born, 25,000 rupees were deposited in the account of a girl child, and with maturity the girl child will get it when she turns major at 18. If Manohar Parrikar really wanted to prevent female feticide, then even without giving credit to his opponent party, political party, Congress or whatever it is, he could have taken this scheme, picked up this scheme of Dhanalakshmi and extended it to everybody and deposited 1 lakh. At the age of 18, I don't have the figure now, but the amount becomes really huge. What is it? 2
In
lakhs?
Delhi they did this.
Yeah.
We were responsible for giving the scheme
Yeah.
to the government in our last, when we had a seminar on this only. And I gave this idea because in Delhi what had happened was there again the ratio was falling. But this, there also is called Ladli Lakshmi scheme. And it's given at birth, 1 lakh is put. Suddenly they found that the sex ratio had gone up above 1,000 for girls.
Yeah.
After this Sheila Dikshit had introduced.
Yeah, and it's really possible because finally, you get something monetarily also, there is also there. But it could make some impact. I don't know.
Is the sex ratio in Delhi still now about 1,000?
I don't know now at the moment, but no, it is not low. Delhi per se, Haryana is bad. Haryana is very bad around Delhi. I don't think Delhi is not that.
So this is one more point I just wanted to make about the Kanyadan scheme and the Dhanalakshmi scheme, which where Parrikar could have actually picked up, calling it Ladli Lakshmi. The same scheme is called Ladli Lakshmi, but I think he picked it up from somewhere else, Ladli Lakshmi, which is for girl above 18 years.
No, this
From the
scheme is
BJP
yeah.
state. What is that? Rajasthan or somewhere?
No, I don't think the scheme is anywhere. The dowry scheme is nowhere except Goa. The dowry scheme is
The
nowhere.
first thing.
But there is a Ladli Lakshmi scheme other than Delhi somewhere
But it's
else.
called something else. I'm sorry, it is meant for something else.
I don't know, but in Delhi it's called Ladli Lakshmi and it was given at birth.
So anyway, we can, I think the floor is open. We can just discuss it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would like to clarify two things.
Yeah.
One is, you talked of migration. Interestingly, Marmugao,
taluka. In fact, I wanted to bring my LCD only because I have a graph of taluka-wise sex ratio over the last from 60 to now, which I can share. That we had actually tabulated it and we put in graph form. But since Arjun said no LCD and all that, I didn't bring all that. But interestingly, Marmugao has a better sex ratio. I mean, Marmugao doesn't have a declining sex ratio; it has an increasing sex ratio. And Marmugao has the hub of all the migrants. The talukas which have a declining sex ratio are Bicholi, Salse, Tiswadi, Bardes. These are actually the places where we have a high education, high income, I mean, it's not the migrant population.
High literacy.
So we're not high literacy. We're not talking about the migrants. So in fact, amongst the migrant communities, there's a high sex ratio, surprisingly. And also, you talked of urbanization. You have to keep in mind also the fact that a lot of the urban population has taken into consideration the rural areas that have been urbanized. A lot of changes have taken place where rural areas, earlier areas that were demarcated as rural areas, have been now converted into urban
But
areas.
not such a big number.
No.
In census towns.
Yeah, so
Census towns.
some of this increase in population has been because of conversion of, and that's why I brought it up in the context of tourism, because with tourism there has been maximum number of conversion from rural to urban. I mean, I have all this
See, Shaila,
study,
this is a little, the whole thing is very funny. I live in Taligaon.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just live behind, means opposite TB hospital. Okay, this is this old Taligaon road. Old Taligaon road. Just, at TB hospital, you come from Santines, one road goes to TB hospital and one road comes to Taligaon. Hardly from that junction it is 200 meters. I am part and parcel of that Panji city. And I fall in Taligaon Panchayat. And it is not a rural area. So Goa is a city-state basically. So the whole tourism belt will be basically a rural area. Some of it has been converted into urban cities. Okay, we are having now almost 12 municipalities. Some of these municipalities have practically become municipal towns only in India. Like Kudsare, it was a panchayat few years back, now it has become a town. People are not migrating there, but what I am trying to say is that really big number of population, it is just not because of course there is an addition to that because people, they have been converted into census towns. But really, the migration is really huge, especially in South Goa and Madagaon. Madagaon is getting congested. And that's why there is this opposition to so-called mega projects in Salse, where the Christian voter population is declining. Earlier they had 80-90% Christian population. Today it is declining to 60-50%. Uttoria has become almost, Navili has become almost 50-50. It's because of this kind of migration which is coming from this way. That is also there.
The only point I wanted to make is that it is not the migrant. It is the
I'm not saying migrant. I am saying Goans.
The declining sex ratio is not necessarily linked to migration.
That's what I was.
I am not calling the migration at all.
I really feel that we are not able to reason out why this is happening. Even in the article, there is no reason why this decline has happened. We are only assuming things right now. One of the things I feel that has really happened here could be what Sandesh said, the one-child phenomena. That could be a factor. And then you have the government actually encourages that you don't cross two-child. So that is, I don't know if that is really taken over Goa. We need to study this. Somebody needs to do a study on this. And also maybe half of Goa's population outside Goa. We're not talking about that population. We're not taking that into factor at all. So we need to really figure out whether it's really important, this issue. Because I don't see any factors that happen otherwise in the society. As a society, Goa is an evolved society. We are and much more alive to situations than many other societies in our country. So I really fail to understand why there is this decline. So
one reason could be, what are the schemes? Has the government got any schemes for empowering the girl child or a woman? Do we have any schemes? I mean, does the government give any money for educating the girl child especially? Or
There are certain schemes for in
is there an
educational sector.
incentive? What are the incentives that the
Yeah, there are
government-
certain this thing, but I feel that this could have been more powerful of that Dhanalakshmi scheme.
There are for education, but there's nothing for employment except for the small, the Dwakra programs, which is not really employment. It's like, candle making and, these small token amounts. That is not employment. If you look at, every year we have something like 600 girls passing out of our Goa University, which is the highest level of education. Look at their employment. Where are they being placed?
Carrie, isn't it because you don't have really any companies in Goa to give employment? There are more of small business houses, business shops, kind of.
Which is basically service industry now, which is coming up, has crossed 50% in the latest economic survey of last year. Now the new one we will get on 18th. It has become 53%. And in the service industry, we find lot of girls working. Service industry is growing very fast in Goa. It is completely neglected by the government, all the governments, all the whole bureaucracy. The people are very low paid, and most of the people who work in the service industry are girls. And you don't get proper employment. That is the only place they work actually, and they can work, and nobody is doing anything for that. So if we focus also on this service industry part, okay, including actually we need to discuss this even in trade unions. Okay, I was discussing with some of our colleagues that service industry we are completely neglecting. It is the unorganized sector, Shanti, which we are talking about, is basically in this service industry. Especially in trade, you find it, you go to any Xerox center, any telephone booth or any such kind of things, any photo studio or all such kind of things also, or some big malls and now super centers and all, superstores, you find girls working there and they are not paid enough. And the second thing, in manufacturing industry, for semi-skilled job, you will find, if you go to Verna Industrial Estate, if you go to Pilan Industrial Estate, if you go to Kunde Industrial Estate, you will find more girls standing for the buses than the boys, where they are low paid.
But
What about
the
teaching?
Your point, yeah, the point is,
farmer does employ more women.
yeah, more women.
So, but the pay scales are very.
Pay scales are very less. And especially the service industry, which is completely neglected.
School teachers, college teachers?
School teachers, it is equally divided that way. But they are well paid now. After 6 pay commission, I could buy a flat because of my wife. Journalists couldn't afford it for the last 15-20 years. It's gone up.
So actually, Shaila and Deepak should do work on understanding why 600 girls are passing out every year. What are they doing after their education?
Yeah.
And we need to track that.
In fact, we're doing that at the moment. with the
There's a
alumni.
small anecdote. I was having a debate once when I was with Rudin, and there are 2-3 Shankaracharyas. So one of those Shankaracharya had come in Vasco, and then debate was held here. And with that, there was one
There are actually,
Muslim mullah.
there are actually 4 Shankaracharyas in the
Yeah.
country, and the 5th one is in Kanchi. Right.
No, one of them was quite a decent year. So he, and there was one mullah, and Albertina was there. And there he said one thing, that among the Muslims earlier, how the girls were killed after they were born. I mean, they used to, take rice and, push it in their mouth or throw it from the hill, go to the hill and throw it down. All such kind of things were happening. And then he said that when Muhammad Prophet came, he said that if a girl child is born in your house, then the door of heaven is open to the whole family. And more girls, the more the door opens, and you can easily go to heaven. Since then, he was saying that the female feticide rate has come down to 0 among the Muslims. So this is a very interesting thing, but people believe in these things, and then it happens.
I just want to read out a study which was done by Vikram Patel of Sangat. In and he talks about mental health of a mother when a girl child is born. You know? And this is according to Mr. Patel, there is a profoundly disturbing impact of boy preference on the mother's mental health. Sangat's research into the influences on maternal mental health found that the gender of the newborn child greatly influenced the mother's mental well-being. For example, even if the mother had experienced severe marital problems before the baby was born, such as violence from her husband, etc., if she had a boy, her risk of depression was not high. But if the baby happened to be a girl, the risk of postnatal depression was greater. Merlin Rodrigues, a counseling psychologist with Sangat, who has interviewed many parents as part of her research on motherhood and mental health, says that often these girls are pressurized by their husbands and in-laws to produce a boy. One respondent revealed how her husband had questioned the paternity of the child because she had given birth to a girl child. Another young mother said that her mother-in-law had become furious because she had given birth to a baby girl. One mother described herself as feeling sad and worried about how she would care for her 3 daughters, as this meant a lot of expenditure. So there is a male chauvinism here, despite education, despite literacy being so high.
India.
No, I'm talking about Goa.
Goa.
This is Goa. This is whole thing is Goa. What I'm reading.
It's also because of dowry.
Yeah.
You have to save for the girl. All these things are there.
And again, coming back to
Can
your
I-
point of religion.
Can I say
He
something?
was trying to speak.
Can I say something? I mean, I'm a pedestrian accountant and I haven't the benefit of being informed by the research that I'm sure the other 2 ladies have been talking about. I speak from my experience of having lived in England for a number of years. And I just wondered, we could all sit here and talk about the reasons why the female ratio is lower and is sort of climbing downwards. What I think is more important, with great respect, is what we can do with the girls that we have in our midst, you see. And I think one has to be positive about it. For example, today you told us, or Nandini told us, that you were going to have...
You're just missing you.
I'm delighted that he's here, because I was going to mention that. I think the positive thing here is that, yes, we have these problems. Yes, we have this cultural bias. And yes, it will take a hell of a long time to escape from it. But we ought to be offering solutions. Now, one of the solutions that occurred to me was when this lady spoke, the university lady when she spoke, and she talked about tax incentives. Now, I would turn that thing around and say, businessmen might not be so encouraged with being allowed tax incentives. But if, for example, as we do it in England, for example, in England, you have an obligation under the law to employ a certain number of disabled people, for example. Now, why can we not prevail upon Manohar Parrikar? Well, Mr. Parrikar, how about saying that in establishments that have more than X number of people, in establishments that have an X number of people, a certain number of women to be employed there. That's one suggestion I'd like to make. You know, force it down their throats, as it were. That's suggestion number 1. Suggestion number 2. Now,
I was not suggesting a quota, huh?
No,
Please don't get me wrong.
I
I'm
am.
saying
I know you
equal-
weren't.
Yeah.
I know you weren't, but I am.
My proposition was equal.
No, with great respect,
employment
madam.
At all levels.
Yeah, with great respect to you. You see, before Tony Blair, for example, became the Prime Minister, the number of women in the English Parliament was infinitesimal. When he was elected the second time, he had 110 women. He was giving the lead. And today, if you go to England now, you'll find that women play a huge role, largely because of that impetus that was given. And what I'm saying is that we can prevail upon people like Mr. Riker, who have a lot of influence. For example, corporates. We can try and influence the corporates. Well, look here, you know, can you not say that we require you to employ a certain number of women? That's the second suggestion. The third suggestion I'd like to make is this. We have a number of women. I mean, I'm a stranger to Goa. Well, I'm new to Goa. I haven't lived here for a very long time. But the third suggestion I'd like to make is, we have a number of ladies who, some of them have distinguished themselves in the field of chess, who are brand ambassadors. Some ladies who have distinguished themselves in the field of swimming, they are brand ambassadors. Why can't we use these ladies to power the cause of women. You see, so people like Nandini Sahai, other brand ambassadors who could be spearheading the cause of the women. And I think these three positive suggestions I'd like to make might probably encourage, if they work, that is if they work, they might encourage people to be a little less feudal in their approach.
That's what I was saying, there's not enough employment available in Goa in the first place.
And one final thing, the fourth suggestion. I echo very completely the point made by the chairman, whatever your name is. I echo the point, and I think this Ladi Lakshmi scheme, all it needs to do is that the money be given at the time of birth rather than the time of marriage. I think it will make a lot of difference.
Yeah, Dhanalakshmi scheme we are talking about, that could have been addressed. But Mangesh, basically, there was one point made by Srinivasan. Forget other things, I won't repeat everything, but something related to your field of your Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Is that basically we are dependent on mining and tourism, where scope for women to work is quite less. And we should get some industries where women should get employment. And that could help. You were also suggesting something like education hub and IT and all these things. That was one thing. The second thing, I was also, just came up with discussion that service industry is growing up very fast in Goa. It has already crossed 50%, 53%. Okay, and still we are harping on manufacturing industry and the primary industry, mainly mining. But service industry is neglected. And basically, in this service industry, more women are employed in this, whether it's trade and other things, and also in the manufacturing industry, maybe in the semi-skilled sector, these women, where in both the places they are low paid, they are unorganized, they are low paid, and because of that, maybe, you know, if girl is born, then won't earn much, boy can earn more. That could be also one reason. It was just raised in that respect.
Thanks. First of all, sorry for the late arrival, because I was held up with she knows that we are celebrating Safety Week, and I was in a program at Verna for the Safety Week, where fortunately the HR managers present there, more than 60% were ladies. So you know who hires people. They are, if 60% of them are ladies, so you can imagine what sort of a, another thing, you know, see, there are certain myths which we just talk about. Now he said about, you know, the employment of girls. She knows better. In pharmaceutical, there are more girls than boys, and they do a better job, and they are not ill paid.
Yeah, that's what we discussed.
Yeah, they are well paid. Mostly in quality control, in manufacturing, and here they do a good role. And fortunately in Goa it is general shift, so they can work very comfortably. That's one thing. Second, he very rightly said, service industry is growing very rapidly. It is growing almost at a 40-45%. And let me tell you, we have worked on an alternative which we are giving to government now, because mining, even if it starts, it will not be what it was in the last 2 or 3 years or 4 years. We want it to start because it has to supplement the way it has been supplementing since 1940, and we need that backup. But at the same time, we also should find out what is good enough for Goans. Goans do not work in hard conditions. They don't work in steel industries. They don't work in heavy engineering industries. They would work for assembly line. They would work. So because of this, what we have suggested as an alternate means of business is to build Goa as a trade hub. We have a port, we have an airport, another airport which is coming. Today, this airport cannot take up cargo. That is for sure. We need another airport for cargo. And basically, if it happens, Goans will be apt to work in this condition, especially in logistics. This is something which is dear to Goans. They have worked world over in this direction, and I'm sure whatever that comes out of the colleges, of the institution, can be easily taken up in this logistic business, where they would be willing, and we will not have migration. We will not have reverse migration also. Because we will be doing sustained business which will be growing at the rate of about 15 to 20% every year, and the new people would be taken in this year. So I feel we should work upon it, and this is one thing, because one simple example I'll give you how logistics can happen here. You must be aware there are weighing scales which are imported from Germany, especially for jewelry. They are very sensitive and very small one. They are imported in Goa and distributed from Goa all over, especially in Gujarat. Gujarat is a huge market for them. So if this can happen from Goa, why not some other goods? Because Goa is a port which is almost not utilized. So if we can get it here and get our local people to work in this direction, and the trucks which are idle, even the inland waterways could be used. So all these could be put to use at the same time. Our young generation can be put to use, and we can definitely work on this. And I am sure this would be a alternate viable medium for our people to look at.
Yes.
Will this sector be able to help women in employment?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, that's what he's saying. Yeah. And in fact, see, one thing
another question which was raised, just to supplement before this, that forget the rank holders in SSC and 12th level. Even the passing percentage is always, is bigger among the girls. And where do they go? That was also, what do they do after that? So even in your trade hub and what you are suggesting, all these people could be employed there with good payment.
See, I'll just tell you one simple thing. I have seen girls who have passed out MSc microbiology working in bank. Now this, this mismatch has to be corrected. You should value their intelligence. You should value their knowledge, and that knowledge has to be put to use. This is my very frank opinion. If they have studied in, now for example, a microbiologist could be a QC here in a pharmaceutical company, right? Instead of being in a bank. Likewise, now we have found out, just because there were no takers for engineers, because you go to any engineering college, more than 60% are girls today. Okay. Very rightly, because of their competence they have come. They have not come just because of gender and all that thing. Nothing. They have come because of their competence, and you should really appreciate them. Now these girls, somehow they have found a way of going out and getting employed. Very good, very much appreciable. But there are some who cannot go out because of certain compulsion and certain they have gone into areas which are not their own. Like I found some working in a mall, an engineer, which is pathetic. Then I asked her, she said, even if I get less amount and if I can work for some software company, I would work.
So the experience, one of the experience I've seen is that in the area of biotechnology, which I think is a good industry to have, because there are more women working in the country in all biotechnology companies, and this is also worldwide. Even in the UK, I'm told that I've been to Birmingham, sorry, not Birmingham, Scotland, where Dolly the sheep was made. So even where there are a lot of biotechnology companies, and in Bangalore also there are a lot of biotechnology companies. One which is run by Kiran Mazumdar shop, very well run. So there are more women who are employed there, and they run it so well. So you need to also have one education in biotechnology and also probably employment in biotechnology companies. Goa can bring in biotechnology companies which will help that part.
Sir, I would like to make a mention here, just a minute, that there is a biotech incubator in Goa University, if you are aware. It is already in place, but no take. I don't know whether it was promoted. Now, if it is given to me, like it is like IT incubation center, you go and see how vibrating it is. GT, that is Goa IT Incubation Center at Verna, which we are running. It is almost full. Not only full, 5 people have come out of there and started on their own, because that is the way you should go about. And that are the success stories today. Like Genora, Kaivi, 5 people have now come out and they are doing it on their own. I tell you, you need a will to work on it. You can make that biotech incubator workable. If you give it in our hands, I can make it, we can make it work.
I just want to emphasize one point. When we're talking about increasing women's participation in the paid labor force, I'm a little scared about this thing of creating jobs for women and quotas for women. You know, today in Goa we have women in, at least in education, we have women in all forms, all the disciplines. So I would actually push for equal employment, where men and women are equally employed in all levels, rather than talk of women's jobs. What are these, women's jobs? Women are more in biotech, women are more in this. There are women in every sphere, but women are not being given jobs in every sphere. There is still gender discrimination when it comes to giving promotions, when it comes to responsibility, when it comes to even at the entry stage. So I think I would be really wary about this creating jobs for women, rather than have women, equal number of women and men in every job. Because in Goa, we have that privilege that we have women and men. I mean, we have a student of physics sitting here. I don't want you to think that women are not capable of doing physics.
No, I don't think
sorry, Viola, but I think I needed your case to make a point. Because
I don't think
we don't see women as being physicists. We don't see women...
So why not? No, we should have.
That's it.
I agree with you. That's not the issue. The point I made was that we need to have more jobs, first of all, in the first place. Not about... in every sector, women should
yes,
be.
every sector, and we don't look at women's jobs. And
ever since I took over the center, I have made it a point to have a lot of women who I have taken on for different. But one thing I find very difficult is to keep them back after a certain time, because there is very bad transport problem in Goa. But if you improve this transport in Goa, I'm telling you there will be more women who will opt for jobs. Otherwise, women are opting. I feel
Can I take just 1 minute? See, why are we talking only about jobs for ladies and all? Why should they be only job seekers? Why can't they become job givers? Now, why I am saying this, I will tell you, because today I have got numbers and I can speak with pride. This was not so 2 years back when we started iCreate. I don't know if you are aware of it. We have started something called as iCreate, where we create entrepreneurs. We have started right from Kanpon. We have taken it up to Konda. Konda is not the main city in the Baldoda and other areas. We have taken it to Mayan. We have taken it to Sakri. We have taken it to Pendin. We have got today groups of ladies who have been trained to be entrepreneurs, how to write business plans, make their business plans successful by handholding them. We have numbers to prove that they are successful entrepreneurs. And let me tell you, a woman is a better disciplined financial person. Sorry to use this thing, but this is a fact. I tell you, they have repaid their loans faster than the others. And that is what the banks have given us the thing. And they have proved that they have good entrepreneurial skills, and it's working very well. Now, one more thing. We had last month we had a program for the sex workers in Margao. We have started a laundry for them, because that is one thing which they can go.
We are using that laundry to wash.
It is at Sakwal. That laundry is being right now is in operation. And what we have done is we have given some of the pharmaceutical business to them, because pharmaceutical need to clean those aprons and all that on a regular basis. So that business we have. See, we have already tried to play a platform where we can use. See, likewise, make them entrepreneurs. Make them stand on their own feet. And let them give jobs to the other ladies.
I'm just going away from the employment part. Coming to this missing girls, I just want to make a small observation. If we go back to school data, up to 2 decades ago, you will see a very consistent fall of students in the schools.
About 40%.
I mean, I cannot give you data here, but you can take it from the department. Specifically in the last 20-25 years, you take the data of the number of schools in most of the schools, and you will find there are falling classes. You know, schools which had A, B, C, D, E came to A, B, C, D, then they came to A, B, C. And schools which had 2 classes, you are practically struggling to get the salary of the second teacher. And in this context, it is I'm not talking about just girl, but the number of children coming to this thing is, we have fallen drastically. And there are many schools, it's only a matter of time which will have to close. It's like you're living on this thing of every year you're asking the government, please, we want to run our school, we want to run our school. In our own school, I'm the manager of a school for the last 22 years in Asagaru. For the full 22 years that I have been there, every May, our teachers actually go scouting the whole village and around the village to get the migrants, so that the numbers are met. And this is not my case, it is even the case with the schools in the cities and all over. The teachers, if they want their jobs, they are told you go and get the students and you come. So that, 40%. No, I mean it's not something to be distinct, but in schools all over this is done. And so this is one part of it, because there has been the falling of the population and the class, this thing. Most of the schools we have lost our number of classes, like A, B, C, D. The other part of it is I am not very sure, or rather I am not convinced, because like I live in a village and I wouldn't really want to say that missing girls is all about abortions or sex determination. I am not very sure that is the Goan ethos. Somehow I cannot swallow that. Yeah. There is a falling ratio, statistics speaks that. But like I live in a village where I know there are so many people who are having babies, and many of them who have the girl, they don't go in for the next child. They are Hindus. I mean, okay, Christians you leave apart, but I have a lot of Hindus around me. They've had one girl. It's not 1 and 2 cases. I'm talking about the whole board or the whole, where fortunately or unfortunately all of them have had girls, but they've not gone for the second child, and all of them have had abortions, multiple, they are young girls below the age of 30 after they've had the first child, which means they have not pursued having a baby boy. Now, I mean, I just...
Precisely, that is the point I was trying to make.
I don't have statistics, but I can only say
precisely,
from my...
Shanti, that is the point I was trying to make, that the nuclear families have decided to have only one child, no matter whether it's a boy or a girl.
No, but there's no discrimination.
No, it is not a question of discrimination. I am saying that's what I said, that it is not based on discrimination. It is not discrimination. But if there is a choice, then people choose to have a son than a daughter. Yeah, and that is where it takes place.
Yeah.
Female feticide takes
The other
place.
part I wanted to say, see, we have a lot of friends who've chosen not to have children, even among us, who've chosen not to have children, or with women getting married much later now for whatever reasons. It's not just now, it is over a period of time, that they finally are unable to have children. I am telling you this from many cases of divorce which I am handling. That one common factor which is running is they delay having the children. They say for 2-3 years we don't want to have children till we have, got these things of ours in place, so to say. Right. By that time, it is not, I mean, it's not that she is too old to this thing, but there are certain complications which, and even let us not ignore that there are complications for women after a certain age because of the nature of, they are working with computers, they are working on, in ACs, this all affects the pregnancy or getting pregnant or whatever.
Even stress of a job.
Even the stress of a job. So all this has led to where you have a large percentage of women who are not able to have children. A big percentage of them who are not able to have children. So when you see there are many more factors, it is not a question of we not wanting girls or not wanting this thing, which are contributing to this whole falling ratio of, which we'll have to find out why. In a much more...
I am still in the... Again I am saying that let us also think about the point which I was making, where people, if given a choice, what will they go for? A boy or a girl, when I want to have only one child? Because one child phenomena is very strong in Goa. And I feel that at that point they will decide, let's have a boy and a girl,
so that
where the ratio is
So even there is just 1 minute. There is a point, because if you somebody have to do the statistics of it. Having a girl or boy, the choice is not who wants a girl and who wants a boy. I have property, I will want a boy. I do not have property, I am not interested whether I have 6 girls or 10 girls, because I have no property. The whole issue of women and the degradation of women has started with property.
No, it is not only a question of
So we
ancestral
have to go
property
into
which
deeper-
Shaila was
I
making.
don't
It is not only ancestral property.
I don't
It is the
agree
property
with
which I have created.
How many people have ancestral property?
Can I
That's what I'm
just
saying.
can I say something?
That's what I'm saying. It is not only ancestral property.
I'll tell you what.
Can I say something? We all know of individual people who might have just had one child. But if you take the National Family Health Survey, which is a sample survey, it's done systematically. The data is on. It's done by Institute of Population Studies in Bombay and with an American partner. They've done it for 3 rounds now. Okay, that's called the National Family Health Survey. And they have found, they have done in-depth study, it's a huge questionnaire of 1,500 women in Goa. They've done it on all states and in Goa. They've done it for 3 rounds, 3 consecutive rounds. And they have found that there is a son preference in Goa. Okay, there is a strong son preference. I also know of individual cases, but I think if you're going to have faith in research and we're going to have faith in this methodology and data, I think we have to go by National Family Health Survey, which is already proved, so we don't need to do any more studies. I think that is enough evidence that the son preference does exist.
I think if you take Shaila's point, that your point as well, that there is a son preference, the issue really is, are there policy instruments, are there instruments which would help shift that? Given that in Goa, the fertility rates have fallen and there is a son preference, what are the ways of changing the economic incentives and preferences so girls have a fair chance of not only being born but being raised in a way that as much investment is made in girls as in boys? There, I think sort of the economic costs and benefits, once the economic cost of raising a girl child shifts a bit and the benefits increase, then you'll see a shift eventually in sex ratios. All over, this is what's happening. So the Ladli scheme that we all spoke about is a wonderful example of how things can go wrong. So if you move it back, and this can be a very concrete recommendation, simple recommendation, if you move it back to money being given when the girl child is born rather than at 18, and change the media images as well, then because just today I think the newspaper had a picture of this Ladli scheme with Madhuri Dixit laden with gold, and the caption was Ladli scheme basically saying that the money was for dowries, and that doesn't help in changing perception of girls being a liability rather than a benefit. The second big area is obviously in terms of jobs, employment. The moment there is employment and women and girls are bringing in incomes, their power in the house, their ability to make decisions, the respect that men give them shifts. And there are many cultural constraints to women because of safety concerns, all kinds of other concerns, that women don't opt for particular kinds of jobs. So Nandini's suggestion just now in terms of changing transportation, making transportation safe, building in transportation costs and jobs, looking at it going forward, there is a huge company law that's now going to require CSR, corporate social responsibility, which would be money going wasted, to set up further incubators, to set up training for women, jobs for women, both in terms of firms as well as entrepreneurship, will all help tremendously in making sure that when girls get an education as well as boys get an education, that education doesn't go to waste and turns into employment.
I think we also need to push the women's reservation bill in Parliament and Assembly. State Assembly is still nobody speaking about it. So I think we need to push it in Goa. We should make a beginning. My time.
Which bill?
Women's reservation bill in Assembly.
Shanti, you mentioned about girl child and all that thing. Now I can tell you, several of my colleagues, I think whoever I meet has the same thing. We all have 2 daughters, and we are very happy with it. Although we have good inherited thing, and we are comfortable with it. So it's not that the perception that you don't want a girl child and all that.
No, but there are certain sections of society.
We are the enlightened ones, so it's not apply to us. In the outside, yes.
There are a lot of sections of society where they prefer a male child, which is a sad thing. But maybe we are not those, but I think we need to educate others to also transform from there. We need to give them valid reasons why they have to transform.
I agree with what Shanti says. When my son was born, okay, it was in GMC because of Dr. Gohariwala. Okay, he had gone there. It was a big general ward, and the labor room was that side. I was this side, and that lady came to tell me, who was that give that bag of clothes and all. So I gave and I said, what happened? She said, "Arey, it's a boy." And both of us, wanted a daughter, and then I said, "Yeah, boy." And she said, "Arey, choireka." And she whole word she said, "Choireka, charodalani, rota, chatlo." And everybody is laughing at me. "Arey, your boy is born and you are making a face. What is this?" So society thinks that way. And I have so many friends who, when daughter is born and they are very happy, and everybody says, "Congratulations, better try next time."
Yeah, that is
so common phenomenon.
I think it should be made public knowledge that the sex of the child is determined by the father and not by the mother. This is not known at all to a lot of people.
Probably that education also should happen down the line.
I mean, government is that
one
government
small
job.
observation. This is from cases which I have handled earlier. And it's not 1 and 2, it is amounting to quite a few. It is very fine saying let women earn money or give them jobs. But in many cases after 20 years, 25 years, that length of time where the man and woman are married, when the man will save all his money and the flat is bought, the woman pays the installments of the flats, she'll pay for the vehicle, she'll pay for everything, means her money is used. Even if sometimes you'll have the person in the Gulf or on the ship or this or that, he says, you spend your money if you are teaching or you are working or this. And after 20 years of marriage, when he's found another woman or he has been friendly, then everything is on his name. And very rarely it is on both names. And everything, life is over for her at 50 because she has nothing. And everything is stacked. And what is there to prove in the court? Her money is spent, and this is with majority of women in Goa. So the liberation doesn't come, all your self-help groups, for me I look at it as absolute nonsense. Because none of these women are deciding on whether they are spending the money they earn. All the money is being spent on renovation of house, buying plot of land, the needs of the house. If they have one television, then we'll bring this kind of television. I mean, it's not a myth. What I'm telling you is it's sad when you really sit down with women and they're happy about it, because when we earn, we think of it's going into my family, but that's not the way a man thinks. He doesn't think of my family. He thinks of, okay, I have to do my duty. But we go beyond because we give our all, that being our very nature, so to say. I mean, I don't want to debate on it, what I mean is generally women give in to the family.
Anyway, yeah, thank you, Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti. And
I don't fully agree.
So like a man.
yeah, let's go out and discuss. We did not regret for, I think, Nandini for having such a short, small number and all. The discussion was quite lively, and really the panel was very good. Of course, other people were also equally good, but I thank everybody, especially.
The audience a chance to speak. Unfortunately, we didn't give the audience a chance.
Anyway, it's a late realization. Can't do anything about it.
Everybody knows
yeah.
on YouTube. This is going to be on YouTube.
Okay. And I think everybody, and especially Mangirish, you came and you really did it. Yeah, some different dimension also we got from, especially from entrepreneurship point of view, because I also know what iCreate is doing. Great job. And something I think will come out of it is just a beginning. But I think we need to go to the people with all these views, and some more people should be like I have been suggesting to you always that, you know, since such kind of discussions we have to try and get college students involved.
I only hope that
Not now. I'm saying tomorrow, next year.
I only hope that the government supports iCreate. So far they are not.
Yeah, I know. iCreate is really making wonders. So I thank everybody and good night.
Thank you.